Practice more.
As creators, we've all seen the same superhero tropes from Mainline Marvel and DC repeated until they lose meaning. But when you study manga, indie comics, webtoons, and other works from around the world, you find bold ways to reimagine those ideas. And I think that's the path to telling superhero stories that once again truly stand out. When I was 7 years old, I turned myself and my friends into comic book vigilantes named the Guys. We're calling it the Guys. But beyond fighting villains, it was me creating a space where I felt like a hero in a world full of trauma. And for years, I poured everything into it. Blood, sweat, ambition, trying to turn it into a franchise bigger than itself. But the breakout moment never truly came, which leaves me with one question. What do you do when reality sets in, but the dream never changes? The secret identity is one of the most iconic superhero tropes ever. Peter Parker hiding behind the Spider-Man mask, Bruce Wayne sneaking around as Batman, Clark Kent literally just taking off his glasses and hunching and somehow fooling the entire world. On paper, it works. In comics, it's practically mythological. But if you drop that idea into the real world, it falls apart instantly. Think about it. We live in an era with 24/7 surveillance cameras, facial recognition algorithms, and everyone having a camera in their pocket. Peter Parker wouldn't last a week in New York City without someone accidentally catching his face on an iPhone video or a TikTok live stream. And don't even get me started on Bruce Wayne. The richest guy in Gotham is caught on camera disappearing every time Batman shows up. It wouldn't take a detective, it would take a Twitter thread to expose him. And this isn't just hypothetical. Even in the comics, writers keep running into this wall. In Civil War, Spider-Man straight up unmasks on live TV and the fallout was massive. In Daredevil's run by Brian Michael Bendis, Matt Murdock's secret identity leaks to the tabloids, and suddenly every criminal in Hell's Kitchen wants him by their crosshairs. These stories feel electric because for once, the mask isn't enough. So why do superhero stories still cling to the mask trope? Because it's not really about realism, it's about the fantasy of living two lives. The idea that you can be ordinary and extraordinary side by side. Comics basically survive by ignoring the obvious, and most of the time, readers let them. But here's the thing, if you want to make the trope fresh, you can't just pretend modern tech doesn't exist. A better spin would be to lean into the paranoia. Imagine a hero constantly on the verge of exposure, a kid whose friends keep posting Instagram stories that almost give him away. Or flip it completely, the identity is public but unprovable. Like everyone knows who the vigilante is, but no one can prove it in court. Manga and indie comics are already experimenting with this. Death Note plays a version of this game where everyone suspects Light Yagami is Kira, but proving it is almost impossible, which creates way more tension than just putting on a mask. Western comics could do the same. Stop treating the mask as a magical reset button and start treating identity as a weapon, a weakness, or even a curse. Batman refuses to kill the Joker. Spider-Man won't even cross that line with Green Goblin. Superman, he doesn't even want to think about it. And in comics, this rule is treated like gospel. It's what separates heroes from villains. But in the real world, that logic doesn't hold up for a second. If a serial killer escaped prison tomorrow, and the cops had a chance to stop him permanently but didn't, people would riot. And the opposite is true. If a civilian truly didn't deserve death, and a cop wrongfully killed him, people would riot too. And as a matter of fact, that happens all the fucking time. Headlines would tear that decision apart. Yet in Gotham, the Joker racks up hundreds of bodies, escapes every single asylum he's ever been in, and Batman just throws him back like it's a bad fishing trip. And comics know this tension exists. Some of the best stories are built around it. In Batman Under the Red Hood, Jason Todd literally confronts Bruce with the saying, "How many more people have to die because you won't kill the Joker?" That scene works because it forces Batman to admit the cost of his morality. Even in Spider-Man, the refusal to kill Norman Osborn feels less like heroism and more like enabling. Here's the truth. The no-kill rule only works in comics when it's a part of a character's arc, if it's a reason why they do what they do. If it's just status quo, it feels hollow, but if you use it to dig into trauma, morality, or psychological damage, that's where it has power. Shonen manga has a different take on it. Take Attack on Titan. The morality of killing versus sparing enemies isn't a line, it's a spiral. Once you kill, there's no going back, and the characters are scarred forever. Imagine if American superhero comics treated the no-kill rule that way, not as a symbol of perfection or morality, but as a burden that eats the hero alive, or better yet, imagine a story where the hero finally crosses that line and never recovers. Granted, we've had those kinds of stories in comics before. Take Injustice, for example, but that's a bad example because I want it on a character that actually makes sense to do it for. That's why Batman and Superman killing in the Snyderverse is fucking garbage. If there's one trope that really shows how superhero comics get stuck, it's the never-ending love story. You know exactly what I'm talking about. That eternal will they, won't they limbo. The on-again, off-again romances that never evolve, never change, and just never end. Peter Parker and Mary Jane have been engaged, married, erased from existence, and rebooted more times than anyone can count. In one more day, Marvel literally wiped their marriage off the map to keep Spider-Man relatable. Batman and Catwoman almost got married in issue 50, only for Selina to jilt him at the altar because, well, DC needed Batman to stay miserable. They had a formula. These stories don't move forward, they just hit the reset button. And here's the problem. In real life, relationships evolve. People break up. People get married. People grow. If you trap a love story in limbo forever, it doesn't feel romantic, it feels manipulative to the reader. Oh my God! Now compare that to non-Marvel and DC superhero properties. Ben 10 Ultimate Alien gives us Ben and Julie, whose relationship slowly falls apart because Ben can't balance being a hero with being a boyfriend. That's messy. That's real. Or take Invincible. Mark and Amber's relationship is a roller coaster of secrets, breakups, and reconciliations, all tied directly to his superhero double life. It's frustrating, I think especially in Ben's case because it's handled like the shittiest thing I've ever seen in my life, but it's human. And at least, it's over. Manga, for the most part, inches this also into a more feasible direction. In Naruto, we actually see Naruto and Hinata grow from awkward kids to a married couple with children. In Attack on Titan, Eren and Mikasa's feelings evolve into something tragic, painful, but undeniably forward-moving. There's no reset, just growth. So how do you fix the never-ending love story? Easy. Make the relationship the conflict. Let it evolve, let it fail, let it reshape the hero's choices. Think Scott Pilgrim, but at a superhero scale. Every arc tests the relationship in a new way, and whether it survives or not actually matters. And if you don't want to make the relationship the main conflict, pick a trajectory and just fucking go with it.
Relationships in superhero media always seem to find their way into primary discussions. From the will they, won't theys of hell, to significant others being mad at their partners for keeping their secret identity from them. Ben 10 combined both of those, just with an opposite twist to it, when it came to the relationship between Ben and Julie. Instead of a will they, won't they get together, it became a will they, won't they break up. And instead of Ben hiding his secret identity from Julie, it's his secret being well known and how it affects him that causes the turmoil in their relationship. It also doesn't help that Julie is honestly a pretty bland character who didn't get any real development outside of her relationship with Ben until she came back in Omniverse. The first signs of toxicity in the relationship come due to their opinions on Ship and Pet Project. Then come Ultimate Alien, it's pretty much all toxicity from there. It all gives you the feel that they're going to break up at any second now, but instead they stay together anyway, even after Ben almost cheats on her with Eunice, who's like a DNA copy of his cousin, but the show doesn't talk about that, and I guess neither will we.
Hey yo, what the fuck?
And all his horrible actions in Dupe, which is something we also don't talk about. We don't talk about that episode either. Almost every episode in Ultimate Alien that has both of them in it usually has them arguing, making it such a tough watch. I know in a real life toxic relationships do end up going on longer than they probably should, but if someone belittles your tennis accomplishments, your career accomplishments, and says you're only well known because you date them because they're famous, I feel like that is grounds for ending a relationship. It's common for superhero media to have terrible writing for romance plots, but Ben and Julie to me has always been one of the worst and most insufferable instances of relationship in superhero media.
Get away from me, you wicked she-beast!
One of the most confusing and annoying tropes in superhero media is instant skill mastery. You know the type. Some random person gets powers, and by the end of the first act, They're already pulling off advanced moves like they've been training for years. Spider-Man gets bitten by a radioactive spider and suddenly he's web-slinging through Manhattan with Olympic-level reflexes. The Flash gets struck by lightning and instantly knows how to phase through walls. Even characters who pick up weapons, Green Arrow with a bow, Batman with martial arts, get their skills boiled down to a montage, maybe a couple bruises, and then boom, flawless experts. Now, I'm not stupid. I know that canonically it's taken years for these characters to master their powers. Thousands of mistakes, hours of practice that strain relationships, break your body, and test your will. No one becomes an expert overnight. Not in sports, not in music, not in martial arts, and definitely not in controlling godlike powers. The crazy part is, comics already know this, they just rarely commit to showing it, and that's why the trope feels hollow. Compare that to Shonen manga, where training arcs are entire sagas. In My Hero Academia, Deku literally shatters his bones every time he uses One for All. His journey isn't about having power, it's about earning control over it, and every step comes with consequences. In Dragon Ball Z, the hyperbolic time chamber became iconic because it framed itself as an event worth watching. Getting Super Saiyan was unlocked spontaneously on Namek through intense emotions, but the interesting aspect came from how Goku learned to reverse engineer it and break through its wall. Hell, even Naruto made the process of learning the Rasengan into an entire arc, one that relied on patience, failure, and persistence. And this is exactly what American Big Two comics refuse to do oftentimes. The industry thrives on stagnation. If heroes grew, stumbled, or realistically struggled to master their powers, they wouldn't fit neatly into the endless monthly cycle of fight villain, reset, repeat. Instant mastery isn't about the story, it's about convenience. But if you flip this trope, the results are often way more compelling. Imagine a superhero who sucks at using their powers for years. Every fight is a gamble, every mistake costs them something personal, or make training itself the subplot. The time they spend learning their abilities ruins friendships, strains their family, or leaves them broken physically. Non-Big Two comics and webtoons are already playing with this. Heroes who are clumsy, overwhelmed, or permanently scarred by their own power feel more real than any other origin story where the costume automatically makes you a pro. Take One Punch Man for example, where the anchor point of the story revolves around the fact that he solves physical conflicts way too easily.
Hey, St. Lucario here. A superhero trope that I think is bad, or at least overused in modern media, is the sympathetic villain. A trope that used to be so rare or unknown to mainstream audiences. Due to movies like Avengers Infinity War and Maleficent, it has exploded and populated in the last decade. Though the trope isn't inherently bad, its overuse can lead to writers using it as a clutch for their antagonist to feel relatable or to artificially get their audience to root for the antagonist. A good example of this is Disney's Cruella. In her movie, they made her a tragic figure with a pretty depressing origin story, essentially taken away from what she's supposed to represent. A greedy, fur-obsessed evil woman. After all, it's in her name, Cruella de Vil, a cruel devil. But hey, that's my take on a bad trope. Not essentially bad, just overused to an extent.
Here's one of the biggest problems with the average superhero story. The villains almost never win. Sure, they'll get a temporary W, maybe knock out the hero or rob a bank, but by the end of the issue, reset button. The hero saves the day, the villain goes to jail, and the world is exactly how it was before. And that sounds fine until you think about it, because if villains never win, then what's the point of the fight? Where's the suspense if you already know who's walking away on top? Mainstream superhero comics are infamous for this. Joker can't kill Batman, Lex Luthor can't permanently beat Superman, and Dr. Doom will never actually take over the world. Every once in a while, they get close, like Bane breaking Batman's back in Nightfall, or Norman Osborn killing Gwen Stacy, but these moments are rare exceptions in a sea of predictable outcomes. Most of the time, villains are just flavor of the month obstacles that exist to be beaten. But when you let your villains actually get a few rounds in, that's when the story becomes unforgettable. Look at Shonen manga. In Naruto, Pain literally destroys Konoha, killing thousands before Naruto eventually turns it around. In Demon Slayer, entire arcs are built on the fact that major characters die and the villains leave a permanent scar. DBZ's Kid Buu literally blows up the fucking planet. Even in Attack on Titan, the villains win so often that you start questioning who the real heroes are. those victories hit hard because they changed the world forever. No reset button. Even in Dragon Ball's case, where things are often reset due to the Dragon Balls, the permanent consequence is manifest in the way that the characters change. Vegeta wouldn't be the way he is now if the Buu Saga didn't happen. Indie comics pull this off too. In Invincible, Omni-Man doesn't just defeat Mark, he absolutely breaks him, physically and emotionally. That reveal is a wound that shapes the entire rest of the series. This is the spin superhero comics desperately need. Let villains win in ways that stick. Let their victories reshape the status quo, force heroes into actual evolution, and create scars that can't be undone. Because if your villain shows up, gets beat, and vanishes by the last panel, that's not a threat. That's a Saturday morning cartoon. And if superhero comics want to evolve, they've got to stop protecting the brand and let the bad guys burn it all down once in a while. The majority of these problems are championed by Mainline Marvel and DC, and I think it's one of the many reasons why they have genuinely fallen off in popularity. When you think about it, comics have been more popular than ever. It's just that nobody's actually thinking about mainline Superman and Batman anymore when that word comes to mind. They're thinking of JJK, Invincible, and God forbid, Solo Leveling. Fresher takes on stories can be found in manga, webtoon, and in Western indie comics. Even DC's Absolute Verse and Marvel's Ultimates show that it's not the characters that are the problem, or the fact that they've existed for 80 plus years at this point. It's just that there are consequences when your story refuses to truly and definitively evolve. And not gonna lie, my first book has been a victim of some of these tropes. But the conversation isn't over yet, because within the next week, I'm talking about the secrets to addicting, irresistible superhero storytelling for your own series that are actually hidden in Japanese manga.